Good morning and welcome to Adult Storytime this morning. We are taking our stories from the book Fractured Fairy Tales, and we're doing this series as part of our summer reading program, Tales and Tales. So for the next couple of months, we're going to be reading some Fractured Fairy Tales. Please let us know what you're thinking of the stories and how our traditional fairy tales have changed in some way to make them humorous or a little bit off. So we hope you enjoy it. The book was, stories are as told by A.J. Jacobs, and these stories were featured on the Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends show. The book is published by the Ward Publishing Company. So today's story is The Seven Chickens. Once upon a time, there was a young prince who ventured into the woods in search of game. During the course of the long day, he got tired and hungry. Next time, he noted to himself, bring trail mix. Finally, as it got dark, he came across a great castle. He knocked. A king opened the door. If you're selling magazines, we don't want any. Go away. Wait, said the handsome young prince, putting his foot in the door to stop it. I am a handsome young prince who has lost his way. Could you see your way clear to sparing me the bare essentials for a night? Say, a 32-course meal, a dozen servants, and a suite with a roaring fireplace? The king figured this was reasonable enough, especially for a prince, and he led him inside to the dining room, where dinner was being served. But there the prince was shocked by what he saw, for in the chairs around the table sat 7 chickens. Figuring someone had left the henhouse door open or had taken the idea of free range a bit too far, the prince began chasing the birds out of the room. Shoo! Scat! Stop that, shouted the king. Leave those girls alone. The 7 chickens again took their appointed places at the table, and they, along with the king, proceeded to peck away at the dishes of corn that sat before them. What's the matter, boy? Said the king, wiping a yellow kernel from his nose. You haven't pecked a thing on your plate. Suddenly, I'm not hungry. Ah, buck, buck, ah, cluck, said one of the chickens. What's that, Florence? Asked the king. Ah, buck, 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 squawk, cluck, cluck. Ha, ha, laughed the king. Very funny, very funny. What just happened? Asked the prince, his eyes widening. Florence just told a joke, said the king. Now, son, I'm glad you came along. I've got a problem. I noticed. You're a nut. The king went on to tell the prince an incredible tale of a witch who came to the castle and cast an evil spell that turned all of his loving daughters into chickens. So that's it, said the prince. Those 7 chickens are your daughters? No, said the king. 6 of them are my daughters. The 7th one is the witch herself. Here comes the plot, said the prince. Right, the spell on my daughters cannot be broken until I can discover which one of the 7 chickens is the witch. Well, now, this is the sort of thing all handsome princes dream of. All he would have to do is discover which of the 7 chickens was the witch, and the king would surely reward him with the hand of the most beautiful of his daughters. The next morning he got up with the chickens and set about his task. He watched those 7 chickens like a hawk. It's no use, boy, said the king. Chickens have the nasty habit of looking just alike. True, but they don't think alike. The one that is the witch thinks like a witch. With that in mind, the prince disguised himself as a beautiful maiden. He figured if he pretended he was Snow White, no witch in the world could resist. I am Snow White, he shouted slyly as he ran through the castle. I hope that there's no witch in the castle disguised as a chicken, and I hope that witch disguised as a chicken doesn't give me a poisoned apple. None of the 7 chickens paid the slightest bit of attention, but an ogre who happened to be casing the castle did. He wasted no time in grabbing the so-called maiden and making off with her to his cave. But just then a handsome knight chanced to arrive on the scene and rushed to the rescue. Never fear, fair beauty, he told the prince. I shall save you. With that, he flew at the ogre, and the fight was on. The knight won out with a combination uppercut to the right jaw and a rabbit punch to the kidneys. Ah, fair maiden, said the victorious knight, grabbing the prince in a dress around the waist. your lips, your eyes. The prince responded the best way he knew how, a sharp uppercut to the right jaw and a rabbit punch to the kidneys. Ooh, I like her, said the knight, rubbing his face. The prince, whose high heels made him a bit slower than normal, finally made it back to the castle and began trying to slither out of his snow-white suit. But before he could, the chickens gathered round him, curious to see what the commotion was. Girls, not now, shouted the prince in a dress. Go away. He grabbed a broom and started swatting at them, hoping to shoo them away. They all scattered. All, that is, except for one. That one snatched the broom from the prince, hopped on it, and flew around the room. Now, centuries of inbreeding couldn't weed out all traces of logic from the prince's mind. Witches, he figured, liked brooms. Chickens don't. That one is the witch. The spell was broken. And not only did the witch turn back into a witch, but the 6 chickens were turned back into the king's beautiful daughters, a little plumper and more corn-fed for the experience. My boy, shouted the king, as a reward I'm going to give you any daughter you wish to be your bride. Unfortunately, however, before the prince could choose, the knight, who still thought the prince was a fair maiden, galloped in, swept him off his feet, and galloped away. The prince's mother had told him there'd be days like that. She had forgotten to warn him, though, about the knights. That's our story for the week. Until next time, stay healthy, be safe, and have a wonderful week.